It's Tuesday, October 8th, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple. I am joined by your other co-host, Mike Shallow of Is Was Brewing. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm very good.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just trying to think with these levels here. Wow.
Is that better for me? You like it down?
There's-
You like it there more?
No, there's just so much more background on yours. Hold on one sec. Yeah, mine, it doesn't matter at all, but listen to yours.
That's probably because you have like the really nice
A nicer
that is
microphone.
that is isolating and
BYOM, man. How are you? How's life as a taproom owner?
it's good. It's been going well. We're finally on Google, which took me like
Good.
several months. There's a very convoluted process that I was trying to play within the rules, and then I just had to start trying to find a phone number to call someone at Google. And I actually did get someone on like a video chat, no phone number.
Wow.
But then it still took another 2.5 weeks after I got someone on video chat because they're like, okay, you did everything you're supposed to do. And then it was still like, oh, you need to re-verify. And I'm like, what else do you need me to do? Please let me do this. And then I needed to send them like copies of like my license and stuff. And I'm like, I could have done this like 2 months ago. Apparently, like this process used to be if you said you had a business at a certain address, they sent you a postcard and then you scanned a QR code and then you just got to verify your business.
I think that's what happened with me.
It's definitely what happened with you. But in the last like couple of years, they're like using AI to make everything better and perfect.
Easier.
And so I had to go outside and start a video in their own app that was less than a minute, and I had to survey the outside area so they could cross-check it with Google Maps, show them the actual address, which the 5 of 5121 is hanging down upside down, so I think AI didn't like that. Show them our sign, and then unlock the door, no matter what time of day it was, to prove that I owned the business, go in, and then, quote-unquote, do something only an employee or owner of the business could do.
So you took a shit on the ground.
I mean, anyone can do that. It's frowned upon.
Right, but then the cops would come.
The cops probably should come if I'm defecating in my own business. But all of those failed for some reason. I'm not sure why. No one we talked to some people who like claimed to be experts in verification. They're like, I don't know, maybe your name's weird. And so
Yeah. Change your name.
We're on there now. And just in time for an article in the Eater that came out, people can actually be like, oh, I saw that, and then Google it instead of the other ones where they're like, this place doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
So now we exist, and people are showing up. So
good.
That's nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's been drawing your attention away from production at all?
Oh, definitely. Between that,
How
and
could it not?
Yeah, I mean, I, to be perfectly honest, I don't do too much in the day-to-day for the tap room. We hired a taproom manager. I still do a good amount of the stuff that isn't just stuff that hasn't been delegated or figured out yet. But it certainly has taken a bunch of, and we're brewing more, but I messed up 2 batches of Bourgeois Daydreams in a row just because I wasn't paying attention to them. And when
you were in the tap room.
Getting drunk.
Yep.
No, I was just like, we're still brewing Epic Isle because the brewery isn't up and running yet. Hopefully in the next week it will be. And so just the idea of like keeping production timelines and doing open top fermentation with a beer that's 3.2% alcohol, where the Krausen, like if we miss Krausen dropping on another beer, it's like not that big of a deal. We still have 12
why is
out.
that a big deal?
There's still a pretty active fermentation and still a lot of CO2 off gassing, where if we miss it on a 3.2% beer, by we have a window of 12 to 18 to 24 hours with other stuff, where if I'm like, oh, it's starting to fall and I put it on a little late, we're still not going to get any oxygen ingress. But we had a batch where I must have missed it by a day on this 3.2% beer, and then it stopped producing that much CO2 because it finished fermentation, but I didn't put the top on it, so it was exposed to oxygen for a while, and it just it was a different color. It was so oxidized, it looked a different color. And then I forget what the other one.
Why don't you have a GoPro just hanging over it so you can look at it from your phone?
That's not a bad idea. Well, this is a problem that we won't have anymore.
Sure.
Once we move the brewery up to our brewery. But the other one was I was trying to get cute and spun it, so we had a little bit more CO2 in it, so maybe secondary fermentation in the keg wouldn't take so long. And our glycol chiller broke. And so it wasn't pushing glycol into the jacket. And so a beer that should have been at, 32 degrees was at 85 degrees because it was that heat wave we had.
Not a big deal.
But it was bunged. And so the pressure got to over 30 PSI, which I don't know what it got to because we only have...
right, it can only withstand that much. The meter stops there?
Yeah, and theoretically the PRV is set to 15. But that's clearly not the case. So I walked in one day and I was looking at it and I was like, I hadn't been in 2 days. Once we crash stuff like that, it's done and we put pressure on it. Or if it's at a certain pressure, we don't need to put pressure on it. But walked in 2 days after that, and I was like, that's much higher than it's supposed to be. And it just caused crazy autolysis, and it smelled like meat. And it also smelled like pineapple, which we'd never had with that. Where I'm like, there's something cool going on here. I'm like, let's see if we keep it colder for longer. Maybe we'll fix it. I also was really busy, and it did not fix it. But we had been running out of beer in the tap room.
Perfect time to mess those batches up.
Right. We had a lot of beer. We had a lot of beer in draft the way we used to operate. We did not have a lot of beer in draft for having a tap room that people wanted to come to. So we're catching back up. The really tough thing now is not pushing things too quickly just to get them on draft and being like, well, we can. People want the beers. We got to sell them.
Yeah, there's breweries here in Chicago who made that mistake.
Yeah, and so our shortest beers still take 6 weeks.
Yikes.
So, and that's me being like, am I pushing this too hard? Is this too fast? Because I want to make sure it's finished conditioning and everything. But, it's a temporary problem. And luckily, we have 130 bottles available. So instead of having a draft board that just looks empty, we can fill it up with bottle specials.
Yeah.
Or featured bottles or whatever. So, and people have been crushing bottles.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And enjoying it.
That's good. I mean, if anyone could not get away with, but take advantage of bottle sales at a tap room, would be a brewery who's doing the types of beers that you are.
Right, and who has a 5-year back catalog of bottles and stuff.
True.
Now there's going to be an interesting thing.
Now you'll have no bottles
going forward. We still have a lot of bottles, but the bottles are a higher dollar item, so I get used to a certain number of revenue and be like, oh, that's a successful day in the tap room. But all of our drafts are only $7, so
right.
We'll see if when we cut back on the bottle features, if our sales are the same or if they go down, and then being like, well, we're a bottle shop. We're a on-premise bottle shop.
Right.
But per ounce, it's actually not that far off when I do the math. But anyway, we don't need to talk about that.
Okay. Well, hey, it's interesting.
It is, and I've been very bad at a lot of things throughout starting this business. That's you start something and you have no idea what you're doing and you're bad at it, and then hopefully you get better at it. I'm still in the being bad at it portion of this. So
as am I. So that's just how. I think some people some people will stay bad at it. Some will get better, and some just like have a knack for it. You know, they're naturals.
Yeah. Do you think that's true, or do you think we just don't see the development for some people?
I think the naturals are also developing, but
Just better at them.
they're just better at it.
That's what like Roper and and Mike
Probably.
Miller are. Yeah.
They're probably just naturals.
They're just naturals having owned bars for 35 years.
Right.
You know?
Right. It's like
there's
the thing.
naturals.
That's like A-Rod said about like working hard. He's like, you know, hard work doesn't guarantee you're going to make the majors, but not working hard guarantees you won't make the majors. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like that, I think.
I think that same interview he said like, you know, a lot of other baseball players are spending time with their kids and taking them to school, and I'm out there working.
I mean, that seems to be a common theme with the people who are like the best of the best of the best of the best. I think there's very few exceptions. That there are exceptions. I mean, there's people like, you know, Mickey Mantle or whatever who was like
Spending a lot of time with his kids.
right. No, well, that's true. No, spending a lot of time doing other stuff.
Yeah.
I think.
Have you ever seen the like? There's a form that they had Yankees players fill out about like their fondest memories of Yankee Stadium while they were.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about that fondest memory right now?
I
It's
just wanted to
pretty-
see
it's
if you
pretty
knew about
lewd
it.
Fondest memory. Yeah, people can look it up.
Family show.
Yeah, they can.
Google it.
Hey, you can look up
Mickey Mantle's fondest
memory.
Yeah.
It's shows you what kind of a guy he is. What type of an organization that is. No, I'm just joking. Just joking. It's a great
watch
organization,
it.
obviously.
Watch it.
So yeah. So you did a solo show.
We did. No. I guess so. Kevin was here.
Yeah.
So I didn't like.
No.
I've never done like a straight up
I've
solo.
done
show.
one solo show.
Yeah, I don't
Just
know
me.
if I've got the riz that you have to do a straight up solo show.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm using that.
But
correctly.
you did. You did a show with Kevin.
Yeah, I did a show with Kevin.
Back to back appearances.
Two
for him.
Cavs in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. I love Kevin. As anyone who listened to that show could tell, he's a very special person and a unique individual, and not in the ways that we typically like laud in craft beer. In like he's like a very like caring and thoughtful and like.
That's not lauded in craft
Well,
beer.
we laud people for their technical abilities and
I
they're
see.
like they're the Sean Hills of the world, where it's like, oh, he's so smart and knows how to make all the beers, and like Kevin admittedly is not the brewer of the brewery he owns, but he is like someone who I like watched go through a really difficult like period and maintain like this like I don't even know if he realized he did it, but like this sense of like who he is and what that brewery is and like how he treats people and I don't know. It was a very inspirational thing to watch as a business owner from a very different perspective of how we normally talk about like the beers that changed my life and like how they affected your like technical prowess. It's like no, it's more just about like how. I don't know, just how he's a special dude to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I got to listen to it. I've yet to listen to it. So,
Where have you been?
I've been overseas. I've been toxifying because now I need to kind of detoxify a little bit. Been toxifying my body. Yeah, I went to Germany. Essentially for the first time. I'd been in Munich for like a day before.
Yeah. I've never been to Germany.
Yeah, so, it was, it's funny, I was, two people came into the bar today, and they said they recognized my voice and from the show, and one of them was talking about the Black Country episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I might be doing kind of something like that. And I was thinking about it today. It's not going to be quite like it because there's a good chance that, like, 0 to 1 or 2 people who listen to the show had ever been to the Black Country, and I think a lot of people will have been to Germany. So.
Or have like a relatively accurate understanding of what Oktoberfest is, whereas like you being like, I'm going to the Black Country.
You blew the surprise.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to be like at the very end of the show.
Yeah.
I was going to be like, and guess what was happening?
Oh, it was Oktoberfest.
It was Oktoberfest. Yeah.
My bad.
No, it's okay. I'll let me just kind of like form how I'm going to do this whole next,
You
hour.
had a whole Kaiser Sose,
Yes,
like,
I know. I've been working on it the whole time.
my bad, man.
I
I'm
actually
so sorry.
arranged the trip around
Around
this show
that.
and how I was going to do that. Come limping out of here.
I've never felt more the same as I always feel in my life.
Yeah, well, I believe that. So, yeah, I went to Germany. Went to Germany. Now I'm back. Boy, oh boy, I feel like I've got 1.5 million things to do now. Our kitchen is closed, which is super stressful. So just looking at how that affects day-to-day sales and the need to get or the feel of the need to get food in here and stuff like that, and like seeing like this person's not in as much, this person's not in as much, is because they're coming in for food, now they're not. And all
Did
that
you
sort of stuff.
notice like a significant bump in beer sales from the food, or was it just an overall revenue bump because you were also selling food?
Well, there was
Or am I assuming there was a
looking
bump?
back, it looked like there was it wasn't as much of a bump as we had wanted from food. There was definitely revenue from the food, but there's also a lot of expense from the food.
Right.
So just from gross revenue, but now, I was also away. That's the other thing. I left days before the kitchen closed. Like, it was just not good
Like
timing.
a responsible business owner.
I mean, geez, it was super stressful for me to leave. And so then I came back, and it's like, okay, I'm looking at it, and the revenue was overall revenue was down, but then I also mark, bar revenue, non-food, because we have, bottle shop revenue, we have bar revenue, and we have food revenue, and non-food bar revenue, stuff. So the revenue with the food pulled out,
Got it.
from the bar side, and that was down, and we've always tracked that. And I was like, oh boy, I don't like seeing that. And I guess that would make sense, but it's only 1 week, so now I want to kind of look at the trends.
Yeah, I think it was a
see
slow
that.
week for a lot of people.
Sure, right, and that stuff happens too. I think it was a really good, beautiful weather. There was a lot going on. There was Riot Fest. There was this and that.
Right.
But that's not how my mind works. My mind works as holy fucking shit, ah. So quietly though, when you see me sitting there quietly, that's what's happening in my mind.
Yeah.
So
Chicken Little.
I don't know. I mean, Chicken Little, as if we'll see. So
Let's hope.
yeah. So then, so now we don't have food for now. Hopefully, we'll have an announcement about that shortly. But that's a whole thing too. Just going over legalities and all sorts of stuff with that. And
You guys are doing a bunch of pop-ups in between, though.
we're doing some pop-ups, but that's the other thing. It's we have to go that's something like that. I feel like Kevin is a natural at just getting that programming stuff
Kevin
going.
doesn't do that.
Well, fine, but he finds someone to do it.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's something we're working on right now, is figuring out we've done a couple pop-ups, and there was certainly a boost, and now I'm like, we should be doing more of these, and how do I don't have the bandwidth for it, but
Right. And you can have a pop-up, and then you can have a pop-up event. You guys had a pop-up event kind of where it was you did it with the Oyster Motor Trucker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's those take a lot of mental energy too to tie into a pop-up. You can just have a pop-up too, or you can
Sure.
tie into the pop-up. We're going to do this food and this event and this and that takes a lot of energy. Or you can just have the pizza or the food or something.
Yeah, I mean, that event was mostly just that. It's the first time we had food and they were
Got
here.
it.
We didn't do any release a beer. We did actually earlier that week. We did release a beer with a pop up.
Got
and
it.
that went well too. But that was kind of last minute.
Right.
We just
Well, to
it worked.
collaborate
It worked really
on
well.
our pop-up people so we
Yeah.
can trade back and forth and stuff like that.
Awesome.
But those are the things that no offense to the pop-up people, loathe. I loathe just scheduling and finding and thinking about all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not how my mind works.
Yep.
I've done this show for as many years as I have because it was first always Thursday night and then it changed to always Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And you know what happened when it was like every so often during the pandemic?
We
It
just
stopped
didn't-
happening.
we just didn't do it.
And that's just how I am.
Yeah.
Like, so this like always needing to do it over and over again is just like my nightmare. So I don't want it. I want to bring food back.
Always need to do
in.
something new over and over again. Be like
Right.
getting different pop-up people and like,
And then promote it.
Yeah.
And then
promote it
come up
differently
with
than
a,
this one. It'd be like, this
a,
one's
a
different than the last
graphic
one.
for it. Like I do all that crap. I don't have people to do that for me. So I'm hoping that some of the people here at Beer Temple can help me kind of find some people to go do that. And
you have talented people here who could at least do the graphics or something. Like,
maybe, I don't know. They're very artistic.
Yeah.
I don't know how tech savvy they are
Got
with
it.
like Photoshop
they're
and stuff like that.
chalk markers, but not
They're chalk
Photoshop.
marker people. Yeah, sadly enough, I'm definitely the best Photoshopper here, which yeesh. Yeah. I mean, we do okay.
You're better than me. I have Photoshop, and that's about as far as it goes. I can change the date on labels we need to get reprinted.
Right.
I also photoshopped a picture of Jackson Churio onto the Karate Kid poster for my
good.
fantasy baseball team.
That's good. I've done some fun photoshopping for the episode images for the show.
Yeah.
In the past.
Mm-hmm. Those
Had
have been great.
some good ones. The Jeopardy ones, or
The one you forgot to put Jude in.
the one I forgot to put Jude in. No, was that? No, that was
you
a different
did.
one.
You put him in there.
Yeah, I put him in that one. I forgot to put Jude in the Chris Farley episode one.
That's right.
But anyway, yeah, I was in Germany.
Yeah.
For a little more than a week.
Yeah, have you
So,
had any beers you've liked recently? I'm just, that's
Boy, oh boy.
Segue into that.
Yeah. Yeah, quite a few beers. Yeah, how do we want to do this, Mike?
I mean, maybe do you want to lay out everything, like everywhere you went in your trip, and then kind of break it down like by the highlights, or do you want to just leave it as a surprise? I don't want to step on the
All that's-
Machiavellian
Right.
ideas that you had for the not Machiavellian's the wrong word.
Yeah.
The Kaiser Soze twist reveal that you were at Oktoberfest. I remember
Well,
that.
let's be real for a moment, right? At
I'll do my best.
4:16 p.m. today, I texted you, any plans for tonight? So that's as far as my planning
So
had gone.
to be fair,
We did have plans.
Chris regales us with his tales of Oktoberfest. Has been on the
Yeah.
dock since
Yes.
for 2 months.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah.
100%. No, I know. I was just saying it more along the lines of,
Do I have any plans for how you tell the story?
or how have I thought about how I'm going to do it? So,
Got it.
well, I guess I can just start from the beginning, I suppose.
Good place to start.
Yeah. So I was supposed to go through Dublin. We were getting ready to leave, and we got a notice that our plane was going to be 2.5 hours late because it required a plane change and stuff like that. And that meant we weren't going to get our connecting flight.
Ruh-roh.
And that meant the next flight, we were taking Aer Lingus, which isn't like United where they're just like flying constantly. And
That's like the
We're gonna miss
Spirit
a full
Airlines
day.
of
no, that's Air Ryan.
okay.
That's Ryanair.
Ryanair.
Aer Lingus is like a legit nice airline.
Okay.
No, I would not fly Spirit International. That would be horrible. But yes, we're gonna miss a day. So I was like super bummed already because we were gonna start in Bamberg, and like that was what I was really like the looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
Even more than Oktoberfest. And I gotta say, big up to Aer Lingus because we got a note like an hour later that we'd been booked on a direct flight from United directly into Frankfurt, which is where we were going anyway. So I was like, sweet. So we left like 3 hours later and landed at this like 10 minutes earlier. So it was pretty amazing.
That's ideal.
Yeah. So also got to try to sleep as much as possible. That's always when I go on these overseas trips. Sleep if you're going
On the plane.
If you're going east, sleep on the plane as much as you possibly
Do you have
can.
a trick?
Yes, I do. I take. I try, if at all possible, to not get to wake up early. Like, don't sleep in.
On the day, like in Chicago when you're leaving.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I take a Tylenol PM,
Okay. When you get on the plane.
2 of them. Yeah, before. And then usually get, like, at least, ideally, a couple of drinks of whiskey. Because beer will make me have to go to the bathroom if I drink, like, 3 beers or something like that. But, like, 3 shots. And then...
Because you're not going to get good sleep on a plane anyway.
No,
You
I
just wanna
also
be
paid a
knocked
little
out.
bit more for the when I got rebooked. I was like, well, I'm not going to transfer. I'm going to be on the plane the whole time. So I got the like economy plus, and apparently those seats they not only like have they kind of like swivel out a little bit when they lean. So I slept for like 7 hours on the plane. It was amazing.
That's
the
awesome.
other guy who didn't upgrade, who was coming from Chicago, we met Boston Joe. He was flying from Boston. He wasn't on the plane. He got 1 hour of sleep. So he was wrecked.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah. So that's my trick. Usually works pretty well.
Yeah.
No official like sleeping pills or anything like that.
This is one of the few times in my life I'm very excited to be a small person is when I'm on planes like that because you can get pretty comfy in seats.
Yeah, when I went to England earlier this year, like I could only sleep for so long. I had like a wide open aisle, but it wasn't. I'm too big to like lay down.
Yeah.
Because people were doing it in the center ones where there's like 4 seats in a row.
Yeah.
But I only had 2. Couldn't lay down, and I could not sleep anymore because my tailbone was like killing me.
Yeah.
So I will say, if I do it again, I'm going to spend the extra. I don't know how much it was. It was like $100 or $200 to get the extra. And it's not even for the leg room. It's so your seat can go down more,
Right.
And you can sleep.
Actually sleep.
Yeah. So anyway,
East is a beast, right?
Yep. So then we landed. Immediately, we landed in Frankfurt. There's definitely beer stuff there. I think that's where Kronbacher is from. And didn't care. Immediately landed, picked up Boston Joe, and then we went, headed east to Bamberg. And the first place we stopped at was in a small village. And it was a place just like southwest of Bamberg by maybe, I don't know, half hour or 20 minutes even. And it was a place that Aaron from Scratch had recommended. And it was called Zehendner. 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 Brauery Zehendner. And they
Tastes like carrot top, saisons.
Yeah, they forage everything from malt, yeast, and hops and water.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like a small a brewery. They definitely package and bottle. People were like driving up to grab their crates of non-returnable, or of returnable bottles, I should say. We went in, very small room. They actually had a cask in the hallway, and that's where they were like pouring the beer from. They poured everything from. No, they poured most of the beer from cask, some from draft, and
like those like German gravity.
just like a. I don't know what size that would be. It looked like it was maybe like a 30 liter, 20 or 30, and had the beer there, had some meats and some brown bread, things that would become a huge theme.
So your colon is
Oh, yeah.
locked up.
Dude. It became a problem. But yeah, it was nice.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, there was people, old men playing this card game for like change, and people of all adults, but like multi-generational, just kind of there. Just seemed like very much like a public house. Had a couple beers there, got a shirt, asked for a large. He looked at me and said, "You're an extra large." Gave me a giant shirt, so we'll see if it actually fits me. But yeah, it was a solid place. Joe was wearing a scratch shirt there, so I sent him I sent Aaron a picture.
Very cool.
Definitely in the
Earthenware
mugs,
yeah,
which we saw a lot of. And yeah, definitely a cool place. We also, something else that would become a theme was we noticed that they put it almost looked like a wooden tap handle. They set it on top of the bar, and it just said Stammtisch, which basically meant like reserved for the regular crew that sits here.
Isn't that like one of what's that? Urban Chestnut beer, the Stammtisch.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You show me a picture of one of those gravity kegs. You knock the
big
spout
brass spout into. They were all, no hand pulls here. All the casks I saw were set on a tabletop and gravity, and no refrigeration after. I mean, they were kept cold and then brought out, but it wasn't further refrigerated after that because the idea was you drink the beer.
That was every beer they dispensed came out of something like that.
They had, I believe, some on draft too. They only had like 3 or 4 beers, and maybe one of them was on draft.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So then
the hazy was on draft.
The hazy was on. No, the hazy was on draft. That was their hef.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That was their wheat beer. So all the beers were very nice. And then we went on to Bamberg. I got some liver dumpling soup and some sausages for breakfast. It's just kind of how it is.
Do they have vegetables?
Yes, they do. They have cabbage.
Yeah.
They have lots of cabbage.
Yeah.
Lots of sauerkraut. And yeah, so I'm trying to think what night was that. The night that we went out? Boy, oh boy, it might have been. There was a night where it was that night. Wow, was it the first night? Jeez Louise, it absolutely was. So we got to Bamberg, and we went to a couple different places.
Is the whole city smoky?
So
That's what I imagine it's like.
it's not.
Oh, damn.
It's not at all. It's very beautiful. It's cobblestone streets. It is hilly, very hilly. And it's lovely. There's a little town square, and where like kind of people set up shop in the daytime, with a kind of a public fountain that a lot of public fountains have like drinking water that come out of them too, like labeled as drinking water. I don't know if I saw anyone other than us trying to drink from it. There's a nice
Trick they pull
river.
tourists.
Yeah. And that kind of divides the town in two. And we went to several places. My goodness. That night gets kind of blurry. So we checked in at the hotel. We went to a couple places, and one of the earlier stops was oh boy, I'm gonna get my nights confused, but we certainly went to Schlinkerla, the bar, the tap room, an old place,
You don't say.
hundreds of years old. I mean, the bar, it's just like old, man.
Yeah.
And it was kind of in between two buildings, or you walk in and it kind of opens up, and there's almost like an open air portion in the middle, and you can go up to the right, and there's an inn above, or you can go over to the left, and everything is on gravity. And it was just the Meritzen, and we were drinking that, and then we heard that there was like a second like little room. So you don't sit at the bar, kind of like you walk up to these, I don't know, like there's little rooms, and you go into the window and you tell them what you want, and then I want the beer that you're pouring is often what it is, or maybe one of the two. But then there was another room where they had a couple different beers. They had a Schwarz beer, and they had a beer smoked with cherry wood. So we drank both of those. And the person who told us about it, because we sat down. The other thing about Germany, for those of you who haven't been, is that a lot of these places, sharing a table is just kind of how it is. They don't have many like little two tops. They have like six tops, and if there's two people there, it's you like kind of nod to them, and they say, "Yeah, sure, sit down over here," and then you sit down. So we were sitting down, and there were two people there, and they were speaking German, and then one of them noticed my other friend's Russian River hoodie, and kind of commented on it, and it was got to talking to him. And it turned out that he was a beer writer from Belgium, and his name was Frank. Oh, I'm going to get his last name wrong. Giraers. How would you pronounce that?
I'm not sure what that second character is, but
It's a J, I believe.
G-J-E-E.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a Flemish.
I don't know. Yeah,
Let me see it again.
you're right. It isn't a J. Yeah. Anyway, Frank.
Can I see it again?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's what the character looks like. So it's like a line. His name is Frank, and what a wonderful person he was. And he is his account, and I highly recommend.
It's Frank, and then it's G, and there's like a straight up and down line. That's probably a J. Eeraers. Giraers.
Sure, that's what it was. And his account is Zythopia.
Cool.
And
What is Zythopia?
like probably like Zymergy.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
That makes sense.
And he was there for like a birthday getaway for himself, where his wife let him get away from the family and just kind of tour around that area of Bamberg and like the outskirts. And he became like our tour guide and told us like the places to go, and spoke like amazing English, also a Flemish and French and German, and was just amazing, and was like way into beer, knew U.S. beer, had been to the U.S. Several times, and yeah, I mean, just couldn't have gotten luckier with that. So he took us to several different bars. We asked him if there were any bars. There was a place called Lawn Beer Paradise that we had heard was really cool, because they take just a bunch of different beers made just right around Bamberg, and they kind of have like a variety. Like that's not common at all.
Like a craft beer bar in Bamberg.
Right.
Right.
But only like it would be like just Chicagoland beers, a bar that has just Chicagoland beers.
Sure.
And that's just like very, very rare.
Right.
You know, you might at a hotel bar have something that has like Kronbacher or some of the big guys, but that's not really what we wanted. And the place, this Lawn Beer Paradise, in Bamberg had closed, but there were other ones. There was another one like further down, but he's like, "There's this other bar that's pretty. It's trying to do that." So we went there, and he like told us about a bunch of the different beers, and we tried a bunch of beers from the area. I wish I could remember exactly what they were. I don't have as many pictures from that night.
Were they all smoked beers?
None of them were.
None of them were.
No, none. Yeah, Special does smoked beer. Schlenkerla does smoked beer. I think there's one other that does smoked beer, but other than that, but they're pretty varied compared to the other places we went later on in just like their approach, the amount of like the characteristics of the beer. Sometimes even the ingredients of the beer. Like we didn't have like a Schwarz beer anywhere else. There was like a brown rye, a lager. There was, Pilsners that were very, like had a strong hop aroma to them. Stuff like that and they were awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, so we were out with Frank for a while. We got food, and then we needed something to eat. This place had like burgers, and we're like, "Oh man, we don't want burgers. We want
night,
whatever." But
Pork
like we had to
knuckle.
eat, and Joe got a salad instead, and Frank said, "That's not going to suck up any of that beer," and we were laughing. Now that was foreshadowing. So I'm going to tell a story I'm realizing now that I probably should not tell.
Well, as we tell all of our other guests, if you say anything you don't want on the show, we can always edit it out. But
Yeah, you'll have to tell me after the fact if I shouldn't have said that. I said where the story ends up.
you know I'm
So-
a bad influence, so.
Dude, you have no idea where the story's going to go. So then we go, Frank, we go have more beers, and then we go to this amazing, it's like an old, from what I remember, like an old mansion, kind of. And we go up to the third floor. Like a mansion or like
Like it's a public mansion?
not even, like old. Like it's not used for that anymore.
half
but
mansion, half castle.
half mansion, half school, half some kind of like building that was like some sort of like not a department store, like maybe like an old like office building, maybe
Okay,
it was.
sure.
So you go up this like center staircase that's like huge, and it's not commercial at all. And then we're on the third floor, and we're going, the winding stairs. You're going up and then back and then up and then back. Big old wooden, dark wood steps. And you open it up, and there's just this like bar. And it was kind of like, not a college bar, but it was where like young kids were just like kind of ending their night, being just like sitting and chatting. More like maybe a grad student bar than a
Sure.
student bar, if that makes sense.
This
Okay.
sounds kind of like everyone to Landmark Cinemas in Lincoln Park, where it's
No.
it's like it's a good movie theater, but it's in this mall that
Yes.
there's nothing else in the mall.
Yes, I
And
have
so
been
you
there.
get to the
I
top,
have been
and you're
there.
like going through, you're like, what is this place?
Yeah.
But with a cool German aesthetic.
Yeah, not nearly as wide open as that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this was like you're in a little staircase type thing. And then very nice bartender. We were certainly getting there by now. We had an appointment at Schlenkerla the next day. Frank, we invited Frank to go.
Nice.
He's like, yeah, sure, I'll go. We didn't know if he was actually going to show up or not, but we invited him to go. And he saw where things were headed, and he left. We got several more of this like really nice Pilsner. Frank will have to tell me what it was there in bottles. And I noticed there was some Glenallachie, which I don't know if I'd ever seen at a bar before, but it was one of the places that Joe and I had stopped at when we went to Scotland that I absolutely loved. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is
boy.
great. And he's like, and what was he saying? He's like, there's something, Joe's like, this is, what is this one? This one's, it's like too young or something. I was like, no, man, this is like cask strength. This is strong. And the guy's like, yeah, it's cask strength. So I'm like, oh, boy. So then they're getting ready to close, kind of. Like when we came in, it was last call. But last call there is like very loose because I think we got like 3 more beers after he said last, and a whiskey after. And we went down the steps. Joe, see, this is this thing. I don't know. Joe fell on his face. But blocked
with your trips, dude.
But he,
Someone
first night, it's always him.
Yeah.
Blocked it with his elbow, gashed his elbow open to the point where there was like, we thought it was like a scab or a piece of blood or something, but it was like a piece of his like elbow was like,
was missing.
Well, no, hanging off, and then his lip was all bloodied up, and we draped him over, and he's like, "What happened?" And we're like, "What?"
I don't know.
We didn't find out until like the next day. We're like, "Oh," Frank said. He's like, "I drank everything you drank." And I was like, "You had the salad. We had a hamburger and fries." Yeah. He's like, "All right, well, I'm never eating salad again for the rest of my life."
That's a great takeaway from that.
Yeah. I promised I would not tell his wife, but his wife doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah.
So I can't tell her for 2 years, he said.
For 2 years? That's
2 years.
Amazing
Yeah.
statute of limitations.
Yeah. So then we go home, and we were in 2 different hotels. I went to my one friend's place first, and then we were trying to figure out how to get to our hotel. And there was no way I was going to be able to take Joe. Like, it was steep, and it was kind of misting, so the cobbles were like slick. Mm-hmm. Like I was like sliding on them, and I was not sober.
It's concussion time.
Yeah, and he's like, "Dude, there's no way you are going to be able to take him home. You guys, we all have to sleep here." So he had like two twins that were pushed together. Like, so it was like a double room, but it was like, it's just a little different in Europe, but it's pretty common. And then there was a sofa. We found out later the sofa pulled out, but that was for later. So then, cut to, and here is a mystery, and this is something that I should not be saying, but I shall.
I love this. This is great.
I wake up, okay? I'm going to cut back and forth a little bit, but
Real
I wake
Nolan
up
telling.
in a different room. I wake up in a different room. I have, I'm like, oh, shit. The housekeeping knocks, and I'm like, I'm in. And they're like, oh, okay, and they close the door. I get up. And I realize that, I have a T-shirt and my underwear on. I don't have any shoes. I don't have my phone. And
you guys go so hard day one.
Day one.
Every story you tell me about whenever you go on one of these trips.
It's like day 1 or 2.
You guys go so hard
Often,
day one.
It's usually day 2, to tell you the truth. It's usually day 2, and we were mentioning that. We're like, usually it's day 2. It's day 1. No, what are we doing? And it does, like, affect the entire rest of the trip.
Yeah.
And we, so then I'm like, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am. So I'm like, the name of our hotel was the Wild Rose, the Villa de Rose. So I'm like, oh, man, okay. I'm going to have to,
the hotel you were currently at, or the one you were supposed to be staying at?
So the one I was supposed to be at, which I had forgotten that I had gone to this other hotel. I thought I was in the Wild Rose, and I had gone out I'd gone out, okay, and just it was in another room. So what I also started piecing together was that I had locked myself out of the room. I remember, like, oh yeah, I locked myself out, and then I found this other room. And there was a perfectly made bed, and I was like, oh my gosh, this person's going to come home. So I laid on top of the bed. I did not get in the bed. So when I stood up, it was still like perfectly made.
You still went in the room and stayed in the room.
They had the comforter. They had like the towels and everything like folded on top of it. It was still exactly like that. I believe I got up because I had to go to the bathroom, and that's why I did that. But
the bathroom was outside of the room?
no, it was in the room.
Oh, okay.
But I'm telling you what I thought.
Okay.
What I think
What you
happened.
think you thought.
I know I remember being locked out of the room in the middle of the night. I remember that. And finding another room. And I believe going to the bathroom in that room. And then being like,
in the
I have to
bathroom
sleep.
in that room, right?
Yes.
We don't have a
Yes.
international incident of...
So, no, I did. So then, I
How did you
go out into the hallway, and I'm like, well, I can't let this door shut behind me, because then I'm totally locked out. And then I'm like in my underwear, and I'm like, oh man. So then I was like, I went back in. I was like, do I get a towel and wrap it around myself? Because then it looks like I'm naked under there, or do I walk around in my underwear? What would you have done?
Towel?
I went with the towel.
Especially if I didn't know where I was going.
Right. So I put a towel on, even though it seems like now I'm naked under the towel, which I wasn't.
Yeah, but
Right.
there's also, you could reveal, like, no, I'm not naked. I
Look,
have my
hey,
underwear
and flash
on.
everybody. Yeah. Look, I made the same decision as you would have, and I saw the housekeeper.
I'm coming back from the pool.
Yeah, I saw the housekeeper, and I
was in
was
the
like, my friend has a room here. Do you know which room
You're going to go
he's
with
in?
full name.
Yeah.
We should probably leave that part out.
Yes. Write that down for real. Yeah, definitely write that down. All right. So this will all be gone. And you have to remind me.
I know the timestamp. I got
Yeah,
it.
and you have to remind me to take it out too. Okay, so, the guy is like, he's like, is he checking out today? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, no, I don't. I was like, no, wait. He's actually checking out tomorrow. He's like, oh, the only room checking out tomorrow is that room. So it was a room that I was next to. So I was like, oh, okay. So I go up and I knock on the door, and the other guy whose room it was opens up, and that's when it all rushes back to me. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not in the Wild Rose. Mark is here. Joe's in there. It all comes back. So I come in. He's like, where the hell were you? I was like, I was in the next room. He's like, how'd you get in there? I was like, I don't know. And then he says, the bed is soaked in piss, is what he says. So, like, the comforter and everything like that. The sofa. So Joe is laying in where I had gone to sleep.
On the sofa.
No, on that side of the bed where I had gone. And Joe was on the sofa. Okay. So, bed's a bloody mess.
Pissy mess.
Both. And
There's blood on it? Oh, because he's bleeding all over it.
yeah, still bleeding.
Oh.
Next morning, still actively bleeding. Yeah, there's blood all over the place.
Blood's thin as hell at that point.
Yeah, so people are gonna think a lot worse of me now after I'm telling this story. Maybe this whole show can't go out.
This is one of the craziest stories you've ever told me.
So
Day
then, yeah, this is day one, and it gets worse. No, it doesn't. So then, I go and sit down on the sofa, and I'm like, oh, whoa. And the sofa's kind of wet, and I kind of smell it, and I was like, "Oh man, there's piss on there too." And Joe's like, "Yeah, I'm covered in piss." He's like, "I definitely pissed myself." So Mark then insists. He was like, "When I woke up, you were gone. Joe was on the sofa, dead to the world, absolutely dead to the world, and." The bed, he's like, I picked up the comforter, and it was heavy. It was so laden with urine. Ugh. And he was like, you did it. And I was like, no way. He was like, you, meaning me, pissed in the bed. And I was like, no way. I said, I'm completely dry. And I was like, there's no way I did that.
Well, there also, you have a towel around you. You're in a completely different room. You're
Right.
very suspect.
Exactly. He's like, you peed the bed, and that's why you got up.
That makes
He's
so
like,
much
or
sense.
you got up and peed on the bed because you were just, and then you left.
Were you sharing a bed with someone, or are you sleeping on your own bed?
It was two twin beds that were pushed right. They shared it was two twin mattresses on like a queen or a king
Frame.
Frame.
I think. Keep going. I don't
Right.
know.
So I was like, no way, absolutely no way.
I've never done that. I've gotten very drunk
Yeah.
in my life. And
I've
never
not
in my
done-
life have I ever peed in the bed.
No, I have not either. He was like, there's no way Joe could have gotten up. No way he could have gotten up. He was done. And like we're both like, that is a good point.
Strong argument.
Right. So we're going back and forth, and we finally decided that another guy we were going to meet in a few days was going to adjudicate. We were going to bring our
I thought you were
cases.
saying he peed
Yeah.
in bed.
He did find in my favor, by the way, because you could not prove I was completely dry.
Well-
So here's what I think happened. I think I went to go to the bathroom, thought that the door to the bathroom was the door to leave,
Yeah.
and then locked myself out, and then was like, oh, what do I do? And then found my way into the other room, luckily,
Right.
because it was open. What I was thinking was going to happen when I opened that door and there was somebody in there, maybe I thought that was the bathroom. I was still, but anyway, that is a mystery that still.
Where did Joe go to sleep? No one knows.
Where did he go? He went to sleep on the.
He fell asleep on the couch.
On the sofa.
And he was on
Yeah.
the couch the whole time.
No, he woke up in the pee bed.
I mean, come on.
But Mark
Obviously, it's Joe.
insists that the bed was wet. I was not there, and Joe was still on the sofa. That's what he's saying. I believe him.
I mean, there's a very obvious solution here.
What?
There were two peers.
That's what Mark says.
There's two peers.
He says there were two peers. I was
Yeah.
like, same night.
There's another one on the grassy.
Two people.
There were two peers on the grassy knoll.
See, that's what he says. And I'm like, no way. I said, I'm totally dry. I'm bone dry. I don't smell of anything. Nothing.
I don't know.
And he was like, well, you probably stood up and went to the bathroom. I was like, if I did that, I would have intentionally pissed all over your face, dude.
That's a strong argument.
And we're also talking like there would have been splashes, it would have been all over the place if I had done that. So that's a mystery that was left in Bamberg. So then the next day,
Do you want to take? We're at an
Yeah,
hour.
let's-
Do you want to take a quick break?
let's take a
Maybe
break.
Get some
I wonder if this will have to be
and,
a two-parter. I didn't
I did not
expect
expect
my
it.
pee
But how many days were you there
in Bamberg.
in Germany?
8.
Okay, so it's gonna be an 8-hour podcast.
It's going to be an
I'm guessing.
8-hour podcast. There's not
It's
many
gonna be a
stories that take
hardcore
that,
history about.
that take that long. I will say, I did not ever sleep in the Wild Rose.
Yeah, I think we all saw that one coming. Yeah, that's a big spoiler there.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we grab a beer
Take a
and then
quick
we'll
break, yeah.
come back with more of the Beer Temple podcast.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Beer Temple podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Schlau of Iswas Brewing, and I'm here with Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple, who thank God you're alive and dry.
Yep. And exonerated. Yeah. I mean, there's no way I did that. That's just not who I am. I'm a lot of things. So where were we?
You had pissed the bed in Bamberg and lied about it.
No. No, I had not.
You had not gone back to the Wild Rose.
Right. So we did go back to the Wild Rose. So then we went
had to
back
get
to
your
the Wild
stuff, right?
Rose. I took a picture when I got there, which I will show you now, of two completely
Very
unslept in beds.
They're wet.
Yeah. No, this was at the Wild Rose.
No,
This
they're
was
also wet,
yeah.
though. You peed
Oh,
in
okay.
it.
We just peed as soon as we got there. Joe immediately went back to sleep. This was at 11. So he went to sleep. And then Mark and I went around the corner to a little place and got some brunch, I guess you would call it, and sausage, sauerkraut, liver dumpling soup, and some beer, Monchoff beer, and I think that's what it was, and in the earthen mugs. And then we set about walking around Bamberg, and it was a lovely town, and we were walking along the river, and we saw something really cool. There was people on this walk would lock up their bikes on the fence, and there was ivy, and bikes would be I guess left there sometimes, and you could see how long they've been left there by how the ivy had encroached. In some places it looked like there were bushes, but I'm showing you the picture now.
Oh wow, yeah, you could see handlebars sticking out.
You can just see handlebars sticking out, and they've just been there for a long time. So it was this kind of weird graveyard of old abandoned bikes. And we were walking to Mars Brewing, not in Bridgeport.
What's that? Oh,
yeah.
Damn.
MAHRS.
I got it. Our friends from
Yes.
from the Firestone Walker Beer Invitational.
Yes, exactly. So we went to private brewery, Mars Brow, and had some beers there around 3 o'clock, and we thought, my headphones just got wonky. Okay, now they're better. And I think at first we thought that we needed to get to Schlenkerla at I think 11 or something like that. Then we realized that was East Coast time or Central time, and it was 5 at night or something like that. So we went to Mars in, again, a 500-year-old or 600-year-old. I forget exactly how old.
I didn't realize they were that old.
Well, this tap room was
tap
old.
room,
Yeah. And just it's just cool to be in a place that has been continuously a tavern like that for that long, and sitting in there. And there was, this woman must have been, we were thinking she was probably legitimately 90 to 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
And she was with what we thought was her son, who was mid-70s, maybe a little older.
Sure.
And they were having a beer together, and there was another crew, and they were just kind of drinking and having a lovely afternoon. And had a really nice time there. And they had several different types of beer. They had a Keller, they had a Pils, they had a lawn beer, they had a couple, maybe a Dunkel, several different types. And that was really nice. I bought a hat there, and then found out after the fact that, because I later lost my hat, that it was a defect or a child size, so it didn't fit my head. That was a bummer. I was already out of Bamberg by that time. And then we went to Kiesman Brewing, which is right across the street. They had wonderful, wonderful, wonderful beers there, also on cask, and a really nice Pilsner. Their Pilsner was just top-notch.
What's the Pilsner in that part of Germany like? Is it maltier? It's not like North German Pils, right?
No, it's not North German, but I think they were saying it's hoppier than the Pilsners you would typically get in that part of the country. Is what they were saying. But it wasn't like that Jever North German style either. It was kind of something in between. And had some beers there. Always talking to people. It was definitely more so than I have personally done in England, where you just strike up conversations with people and they come up to you. And there was a local guy who came up to us, and then some other people heard our accents, and they were from America, and they travel the world cat sitting for people. They don't own cats, but like they were in Bamberg for like 3 weeks or something like that, in like an amazing spot. And then they were going to go to London in like this amazing part of town for like
Take care of other people's cats.
yeah, for weeks on end, or like a month at a time sometimes.
How do you get that gig?
Right.
Is there an app?
There's like an app, and then you start getting like known and like highly recommended, and like you get to stay in these people's like nice houses
You could hire
and just take care of their stinking cats.
I mean, I have a cat. You just feed it a couple times, and you make sure it's not like
Right.
upset.
I know.
I gotta get
And
on
they
this app.
didn't own cats. They weren't necessarily cat people, but like that's what they do. I think it was just cats. I don't know if it was dogs too. I think it was cats.
Amazing.
Yeah, so they'd like
Biggest grift of all time.
right, and they were like, hey, I mean, they're happy, we're happy, and you just like get to stay in like all over the world for extended periods of time
I don't know.
in nice places.
You didn't get into this probably, but like, are the people who they're cat sitting for paying for their travel, or they're like, we'll travel to cat sit for you?
Yeah, they travel to cat
Okay,
sit.
okay, fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they probably have a business where I can like write that off. That's genius.
Yeah, so that's what they were doing. And they had been kind of all over the place. And I met those folks. And then realized, we had time for Kiesman, and then we had to get to Schlenkerla because we're meeting. And I had skipped over this part, but the gentleman, Frank, that I had met the night before was sitting with another guy. They were speaking German. The guy was a brewer for Schlenkerla.
Get out of here.
Yeah, so I was talking to him, and he was born in Bamberg, very proud of the beers there. And I told him Matthias set up the tour, and it's going to be, he's like, oh, Matthias owns the place. And I was like, oh, it's like, well, it's Mr.
Matthias Schlenkerla.
Knab, or Knob, Knab. He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, that's my boss. He's the ex-brewmaster. And I was like, oh, okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so then that was the night before, and then so then this day we're going right back to where we had been. Mm-hmm. And we went there, and we're walking around, and we don't see anyone, and we finally go, and they're like, oh, you're supposed to go to the brewery. And then I look at the email, and it says, go to the brewery, not the tap room. And I was like, and we were like, maybe right on time then. I'm like, where is it? And they're like, it's 15 minutes in that direction. We're like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Like, can you please call him and just tell him? And he's like, okay, well, we'll try to. So we're like racing over there, running, out of breath. Like, oh my gosh. Like, Germans are known for not being punctual. You know that.
Yeah, of course. They're a very loose culture.
And in setting up all this stuff, I will say, like in the weeks and months prior, people are like, when are you coming? I was like, well, on this day. Well, like, about what time? Like, we're thinking like afternoon, early afternoon. Well, okay, when you know exactly what time you're going to be there, let me know. And then like, 2 weeks before, like, do you know exactly what time yet? I was like, fine, 11.
It seems to fit your personality really
Perfectly.
well.
It works out for me. Great. Then what I would do is immediately pass everything off to Joe and be like, okay, now you have to remember all this stuff. Sometimes I wouldn't give him all the information, and that would kind of
Doesn't
come back
sound
and
like you at all.
bite us. Yeah. So we're racing there. We see Mr. Knab waiting, and who's he chatting up? But Frank. We're like, oh, yeah, Frank. We invited him there, and he showed up. Hey, Frank, what's up? And he was like, uh-oh. He sees Joe, and he's like, yeah, we're talking. He's like, I told you that, that lettuce wasn't going to. He's like, you don't make friends with salad, I think is what he said. And
Hilarious. That translates to German, huh?
Yeah. And we went, but it was fine. Everything was good, and he had been talking to him, and we went in and learned the history of Schlenkerla, and we went through the brew house, beautiful copper old brew house, and they had brewed earlier that day. The kettles were warm, very warm still, and then we saw where they fire the malts. The stacks of beechwood, and they use 100% smoked malt for their Märzen, which is pretty intense. I mean, most Rauch beers here would use like 5 or 10%, I think.
But they smoke all their own malt, so it's probably not as smoky as the smoked malt that we're using.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then the brewery is cool, but really, like, these lagering caves were amazing. Here, come with us, and we go down this like really steep. You saw pictures of it. I put it on Instagram. Like, it's deep.
Yeah.
You're going like way down this tunnel, and you go into it, and it's like pretty small, like I don't know, like tunnels that are kind of going every which way, and they were all over the place out there. In fact, later on in the thing, they saw where they had we're expanding over to here, and we're like, well, how were there like more caves? Like, oh, well, there were caves under the next person, the building next to us. So we just
there were caves.
Yeah, and then they just broke through, and there were like 700-year-old caves down there.
Like
man-made human-made,
caves.
Man-made caves.
For lagering things. Or just for general storage?
I think it was for... I don't know.
How do you get tanks down there?
We saw there's like these big tunnels that they would that would lead down, and you would slide them down. Like, did you have to manufacture them down? They're like, no, we had to and he's like, here. And it was like this big, long, slide, which was always there. Always part of the cave system. The tunnel system, I should say. So
this is blowing my mind.
Yeah. And I don't know if you read in the description of the post, but you could see...
Reading's hard.
You should go back and look at pictures. He was like, see these lines in the wall? He's like, those are the individual pickaxe marks from when people dug this thing out. I was like, my mind was blown. So I took a picture of that. So
there was one picture. I'm like, Chris was drunk.
Yeah,
it's like the
wall.
That is the pickaxe marks.
Yeah, so I wasn't drunk. It was...
You might have been drunk, but...
No, I wasn't. I mean, maybe from the night before.
Yeah.
No, but...
but the picture was meaningful.
Yeah, that's why I took that picture. Was because he was like, those are the marks from the pickaxe from the people from 700 years ago when they dug this out. I think they got sandstone out of it, and then so it might have been like a twofer,
like a mine, and then
I don't know if it was quite maybe it was a mine that level, or maybe they used it for two things. They got the sandstone out of it, and then they used it for lagering. We need to lager or to store, and we take the sandstone out of it, too. Because we asked, what is the rock? And he's like, it's all sandstone, is what he said.
Huh. I don't know anything about sandstone.
Yeah, I don't
Does
either.
the whole place look like sandstone?
Well, it was covered in this...
I mean, are the buildings in Bamberg sandstone? Are they stone buildings? Or are they taking it out of the earth to build up?
There is stone, but there's also... It almost starts looking like alpine, where you have that latticing. I don't know if that's the right word. Where you have the... It almost looks like yellow. It's not stucco, but it almost looks like stucco. Maybe it's stucco. And then you have the wooden framing Xing across it. There's a lot of that.
I think latticing is right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to get an architect on the show.
Right. So that's what a lot of the look of Bamberg was, and also stone.
And so you were in the cellars of Schlenkerla.
Yeah.
And then...
With the ex-brewmaster.
Yeah, and you just went down there and came right back up?
Yep. No. No, we drank Märzen and Helles, from the Zwickel off the tanks, off the lagering tanks, baby.
Sounds like a terrible time.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Were they different, or was the experience just really cool? Like, what was the? Were they fresh? And you're
of
they're
course.
they're so different because they're fresh.
Well, we had it from the tanks. The cask the night before, and it was like super fresh. It seemed remarkably less smoky there. I don't know why. Because I think of the Märzen as quite smoky.
The Märzen's very smoky.
It didn't seem smoky at all. I mean, I take that back. It did seem smoky, but relatively, it was like, I feel like Schlenkerler Märzen is not a beer I could drink all night long. There, I was like, oh, no problem. I can drink this all night long.
Is it possible that, like, a lot more of the city is actually like, I was joking, like, it's all smoky. It's not.
It's not.
The city's not smoky.
No, it's not.
Huh. I don't know what that could be then. Do you think?
I mean, I made note of it at the time. I was like, this isn't nearly as smoky as I remember it.
I wonder if that's one of those things where I'm like, maybe because you were in this, that you landed that city, you breathed that air, you smelled that place for so long that you just adapt to it. Like within 4 hours or 3 to 4 hours.
We would have noticed it once. You'd be like, oh, this place is smoky. There's smoke here. There's no smoke. I mean, there's no no, there wasn't.
Huh.
Yeah.
Do they think of their beers as smoked then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
they're saying, like, this is how all beer would have been at some point in time. And
that's all beer, baby.
Right.
It's technically true about all beer.
Yeah.
Which would you like when you were drinking them there?
I like the Märzen the most there.
Yeah.
The Schwarzbier is pretty cool, too. But here I like the Helles.
Right.
And the Helles was the first one we drank, and it was amazing. But there I like the Märzen the most. Yeah.
And Helles is the one they don't make with smoked malt, though.
Correct.
Do they make that malt still? Did you ask them these questions, or like should I just go myself?
I think I did ask them. I believe I asked them that, and I believe they get that malt from like Weyermann, who was also in Bamberg. Mm-hmm. We did not make it to Weyermann. I think I will go back to Bamberg. I liked it that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a place I'd like to go. Is Weyermann malt? I think that's where they get it.
I think if I could go to, if two places in Germany, Bamberg would be in the top two.
Oh.
The other one would be Wörl. That's where my name comes from.
Ah.
My family's from.
Ah. Okay. Yeah, I highly recommend Bamberg. So then we said goodbye to Mr. Knab. It was a wonderful visit there. We saw all their wooden casks that they have, because they do a lot of stuff from cask there. Wooden casks, pitch lined though. Mm. Yeah, so you're not getting any oaky character from them. But they are all
pitch
wood.
Was the original stainless.
Yeah, basically. And then I'm going to use my phone to kind of cheat a little bit. We went from there. I believe it was now getting kind of dark because we were there at around 5. And Frank said, I know this little place that opens around 6. And we were done, or maybe, no, it opens at maybe 7. So I think that's right. We went to a little bar around the way and had some beers there. They were just opening up at 6. And the place was, I think, completely empty except for 2 people. And they weren't sure if they could seat us because they were expecting, I guess, that just like the regulars come. But they said, all right, well, if you come for a little bit, you can have some beers. And the guy looked like Chris Pine, the actor, and spoke like amazingly good English. Like,
it was Chris Pine,
right? He's from America. This guy's from America, but now he lives in Bamberg, right? He had this weird kind of like a little bit of a drawl to how he spoke, until eventually I was like, we were like, so are you have you lived? Are you from the U.S.? And he's like, no. I was like, have you lived there? He's like, I go there, but no. Yeah, I'm from Bamberg. We're like, what the hell? How do you not have an accent? It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we had some beers there, and then we went. We were there for an hour, and then it's getting kind of dark. We're walking on the cobblestones. I'm showing you a picture.
Yeah.
And then we went to this little place that Frank also knew about. Just a little, looks like a home, and it's called like Schenke. Mm-hmm. And they opened at 7, I believe. And you just kind of walk up these old, like, stone steps, and you're in there. And when you get in there, this place is, it is like a decrepit living room. There is just like clumps of not just like dust on the things, but like clumps of dust on stuff. There's a little old piano in the corner. There are sofas that are the fabric is like starting to like wear thin. When you sit on them, the springs go all the way to the bottom, so you're like sitting almost on the floor. And then there's a little potbelly stove, and there was a guy who would like feed the wood in. And then at 7, when we got there, so at 7:05, somebody brings like maybe a 20-liter cask out. Rubber, not wood, or that rubber-lined kind of stainless, and sets it on the counter, taps it. We start drinking it. It was this beer that we had the night before. I forget what brewery it was, but it was just wonderful beer. And the cask stuff, I got to like not like the draft stuff because it's just the carbonation is so much softer from the cask. Not really as soft as the English, but still softer. And I don't know if these were. I don't think this is real ale. I think these were pulled from a Bright and put on there. I don't think these were real ale.
Sure.
But they still had an effect on the carbonation.
They may still technically be real ale because they were like probably spunded and put in the cask. But who knows about that, Steve? Right.
Definitely texturally, they had a difference to the point where you could taste the beer like, oh, this beer must be from a cask. So we had some beers there. People's like some guy who like lived upstairs above the place, like he wasn't there, but his dog was there, and it was like just jumping up onto the sofa next to us and like sitting there. And we had some beers there. Then we went and had a delicious dinner. Place was packed. All locals had like so. The smell of Bamberg bars is something that I will like. It's going to be in my memory as like one of the best beer things. You walk in, and it smells like schmaltz and like roasted meat. It smells like chicken fat and meat, and it's like your mouth waters when you walk into these places. And we had a delicious meal, had some more beer. Then we decided, let's go back to that other place. That place was awesome. And we went to that first place that we were at. These two people, their school teachers were still there. We sat down kind of where we had been and struck up a conversation with them. And luckily, everybody speaks better English than we speak German. And there was a dog, Hector, that was hopping up in our laps. And hot, man. The bars are all so hot there, too. Man, they like their place is hot.
The summer, right?
No, it's fall. Yeah, it's October, or late September. So it would be kind of chilly and rainy outside, but it'd be hot.
They didn't have like the heat on.
No, this place had a fire going.
Oh, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hot.
So I think there probably is a lot of smoke in Bamberg then. Not the city is smoky, but there's several places that have potbelly fires going.
Maybe. A lot of them had fireplaces that were empty, but they had this beautiful, like, green glazed brick on the outside of them. Mars had one. A lot of places had them. They were really, really cool. Big fireplaces in the middle of the rooms. And they had tapped a second cask at that point. And then the cask ran out, and then the bar closed. And they're like, okay, well, we're done for today. See you tomorrow. So they, the bar opened. They tapped a cask. They went through it. They tapped another cask. They went through it. And, okay, see you guys. Amazing. So then we found, and I think they had other beer, but, like, I don't know if anyone was drinking. I mean, it was just one beer. They tapped that cask. Everybody drank that cask. And then when they were done, the bar closed. And then we went. Joe was a little banged up. He might have ducked out at that time. He might have gone to one more place. Frank and Mark and I went to a few more places, and then Mark and I went to even more places, and then I was trying to figure out where I needed to go. We walked home, and we found out the next day that there was this like Wilderose, like it might have been like Wilderose Brewery or Wilderose Tap Room or Wilderose something. It was owned by them, but it wasn't the inn. And I was like, 20-minute walk? Like, this isn't right. So I was like, and we're looking around, like, I think it's this way. And I just, it's a medieval town, so it isn't like a grid. So it's like, it's right. More difficult to, especially at night, and you've been drinking. Yeah. And he was like, dude, you're spending the night. I was like, no way, man. The bed's pissed. I'm not doing it. And he's like, well, they made the bed. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot about the night before. I went back into the room, and I took the soiled comforter, and I threw it in that room, and then took the clean comforter and put it in our room, so to speak, to kind of like not make it as apparent. And then we asked for the room to be cleaned, and the room was cleaned, but I was like, I'm not sleeping on the bed. And he's like, oh, by the way, that's a pull-out bed. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I'm going back. And he's like, you're not going to be able to, my phone was also dying. So my phone was about to die. No, it had already died. So I had to try to remember where I thought I was going. And then
medieval town on
right.
cobblestone streets.
Right. So I was like, all right, fine. But I wasn't going to sleep there. I'm not sleeping on that bed, on that sofa, and I'm not sleeping on that bed.
I'm just going to charge my phone, and then I'll go
right.
back.
And then
you can call an Uber.
There are no Ubers, yeah. So then he's like, well, the bed pulls out. I was like, oh, all right, fine. So that's why I never slept in the Wilderose, the room I paid for.
No one did.
Joe did the second night.
All right.
Yeah.
He made it back.
Yeah. So that was our time in Bamberg.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the end of our time for this show. Should we keep going? We can go for a little bit longer, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, where did you go after Bamberg?
Well, the next day.
Might be a two-parter. Who knows?
Right. The next day, we got up and we went to a couple different places. Went to 3 places the next day. The first place we went to outside of this south. We traveled south, and we're making our way towards Munich. So Bamberg is more or less directly north, and we went south. And we that day was kind of the it was a little a wheat beer heavy. So we went at first to Michael Planck was the first place we're going to go. Brewery Michael Planck. There's a little bit of a communication error, not on our part, but I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but like it didn't seem like the word got to them that we were showing up. Gotcha. So we went there, and they were very nice, and they were brewing, and they had another meeting that they were doing, so they showed us around for a little bit. We met Michael Planck the 16th. And
the 16th?
The 16th.
Wow.
They've been around the brewery had been around since 1617, and he was the 16th, and he had just the year before passed the brewery over to the 17th.
It's the 16th.
We met the 17th.
That's pretty special.
We met the 17th, yeah. and he
How
was the
old
current.
is the 17th?
I think he looked like he was like maybe
17.
23 or
Oh,
something, pretty young. So I think the 16th was still doing a lot, but was very happy to not be the main person who was like mashing in and doing all that stuff all the time.
Oh, so they're like brewing all the beers. It's not just like there's like owning this brewery and then everyone else does all the work. Like they're actually.
The brewmaster, Michael Blanc, was definitely brewing. There was another brewer with him, but he was dressed as a brewer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we had some of their wheat beers, and they're like incredibly decorated. They've won.
Open top.
Yeah, I think they've won
float
like
tanks.
8 or maybe 4 golds, 8 silvers, 20 bronze. Like they've won tons and tons and tons of
Yeah,
World Beer Cups.
They are one of the standards, probably.
Yeah. Had a absolutely phenomenal, I think it was a Weizenbach. It was probably the best Weizenbach I've ever had in my life.
Tracks.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so good. And then we, I was not feeling great. So I wanted to have some.
When's the last time
we
you
had
had a
pills.
vegetable?
Right. That wasn't kraut.
Yeah. Kraut's
Well, you
great.
saw what happens when you eat vegetables.
Yeah, you die.
We learned. Yeah. And then we went on to Schneider, which was maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes from Planck. And met a wonderful gentleman. I believe his name was Stefan. And toured us around Schneider. We saw the open fermenters actively fermenting the hef, and beautiful space. It was located in a town. I forget the name of the town, but it was like a medieval town that had a moat, and the moat went like right almost through the Schneider brewery. So like at one point, like you take a bridge, a tiny little walking bridge, like over the moat to get into the brewery, and then we had to like go over the moat again to come back out. And
Amazing.
yeah, it was cool. But no, there's a lot of very ancient things from a brewing standpoint in England, like when we were in the Black Country. This stuff they did not that they especially valued, like they valued like new technology and stuff like that in brewing there. So like, yeah, we're from 1617, but it's not like we haven't like changed with the times.
Right.
Like, they had, stainless steel jacketed stuff, and but the open fermenters at Schneider were pretty awesome. And then we went to their restaurant and had some Aventinus, and we had some Schneider hef, and they, I believe, had a Pilsner now too, which was really good, really, really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we went to a local restaurant. We walked in. This tended to be a theme. Packed. Can you seat us? No. Well, how long are you going to be? Like, we'll be in and out in like an hour. Okay, you can sit over there. And it was like a big, long set table that was going to be a huge group coming. And there was like a brass band playing, and it was playing the oompa music and stuff like that. And we had another meal of sausages and meats. And then the next day, we woke up and we went to wait. Did we do it that? No. No, I take it back. We hadn't eaten yet. We went from Schneider to Weltenberg Kloster Brewery, which is on the Danube, right on the Danube, very, very historically famous river. And it's like right at a bend. Like the river kind of comes up and then like kicks up into like this little, heel and then swings back. And right at that heel, there's a cloister, like a monkish order, which is still there. We went into the cathedral and they brew beer. And I wanted to go here, one, because it was beautiful, and two, because I discovered Munich Dunkel, or that style, through this brewery. I was in Madison at a bar called the Malt House probably 15 years ago, and I saw that they had this Weltenberg Klosterbarek Dunkel. I was like, I'll try that. And I was like, wow. I've had Dunkels before. I didn't really like them. I drank. I was like, Jesus, this beer is amazing. Why aren't more people drinking this style? This style is so good, and it's low in alcohol, and it's so flavorful, and it's not too heavy. So I wanted to go there and have that at the source.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was great. Sitting outside, had like a whole smoked trout with it.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and some Dunkel, and it was amazing. And then we went back and ate more smoked meats and ended our day there. And the next day we got up and went to Austria. We went to Salzburg, and about a 3-hour drive. So like, instead of going directly south, we like kicked all the way over southeast, and we went to Salzburg, Austria. And it was amazing. First stop was Trumer.
Is that a good brewery?
Yeah, I did. So I didn't realize. So it's bigger than the one in Berkeley. Mm-hmm. They also do open fermentation of their lagers, which is pretty unusual, right? Why are you laughing?
I mean, didn't you get in a fight with someone at Trumer about open fermentation?
Kind of, yeah. And then so then they have their open fermenters, mm-hmm. and they tasted us through, just the most lovely tour guide. Gave us a private tour on a day off. Like, so many times people showed up at Schneider, at Schlenkerla, and it happened again. Like, just people showed up just to show us around. It was amazing. Like, we went on one official tour, and we bailed on it just because we weren't into
You've been
it.
doing so many private tours. Why would you stay for the
Right. So they had a very hoppy with like Cascade, might have had like Simcoe or something in it, low alcohol pills, incredibly hoppy. We had the Trumer pills, we had a Märzen, we had a Bio-Zwickel, like their Paracelsus, mm-hmm. And then we had an ale that they do for fall time. I forget exactly what it's called, but it was an amber ale that is a tradition of that specific region of Austria. And it's for the fall, and it's for this like fall fest. And it isn't it's not the Märzen. And it was delicious. It tasted like fall. So that was very special. We felt very fortunate to be able to drink that beer. And then we went in further into Salzburg, because this was like what I would think of as like, maybe Salzburg County, but not Salzburg City.
Sure.
And Trumer's also like. So then we went to Stiegel, and Stiegel and Trumer, like, I don't know in your mind how you equate the two in size. Like, how do you think of those two?
I feel like Stiegel has to be like quite a bit bigger.
Like how much bigger?
I mean, now that you're asking me, I'm
Right.
going to increase the number. I probably would have said 5 times bigger.
Yeah, right.
But now I'm thinking like 10 times bigger.
It's like 20 times bigger.
Yeah.
Like, it was huge. It was just a massive operation. I think they said Stiegel makes like 10% of all the beer in Austria. I think Heineken makes like by far the most, and I think like Trumer makes like 1% of all the beer in Austria.
Okay, so
Still a lot.
yeah.
But and that is 10% bigger, but it it seemed more than 10% larger. And then we went there, and it was like kind of like a very guided tour with like exhibits and, you know, things where you can like walk on the ground and it's squishy, and that's supposed to be like you're walking on the yeast. And then there's like this interactive thing. It was like very kind of like It's a Small World type thing. And I'm very thankful of everyone who set us up there. I love Paracelsus. We got some fresh Paracelsus there. And it just wasn't the tour. And it was like a group of like, 40 people. And
You bailed on it.
we bailed on it. Yeah, we left. And we went and had a very nice meal there and drank a bunch of Paracelsus. And it was wonderful. And then from there, we went to one of the greatest drinking establishments I've ever been to in my entire life.
They've got a beer temple over there?
They have a beer temple. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I met myself.
German Klaus.
Yeah. I'm sure there's listeners who have been here. It was another Kloster in Salzburg. It was the Augustiner Kloster, unaffiliated with the Augustiner that we know and get here. And this place, dude, was amazing. You go in, and there is probably I don't know, like from that wall to like here. How many feet is that? I don't know, 25 feet or something like that.
Yeah.
There's like 25 feet, and it's maybe 6 feet tall, a solid 6 feet tall, and it's just shelves the height of beer mugs from top to bottom. And it's all unmarked earth half-liter and liter mugs. That's just all there is. And you grab one, and then there's this fountain that looks a lot like the communal hand-washing fountain at the Publican.
Uh-huh.
It looks almost exactly like it. In fact, I was talking to someone, and they're like, I think they stole that from
Took it, yeah.
Even though, but this is for washing your mugs. So there's just water. It's not flowing all the time. I think it used to, or there used to be handles, but now there's like sensors. So
Sure.
And it's not like it comes out like when you turn the spigot on the outside of your house or something like that. Like it like rushes
Flow,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. And you rinse your mug, and then you pay for the beer, and they give you a ticket, and then they have big
Wait, that fountain is
water.
water. Okay, so
Water.
You pay for a ticket before you get the beer.
You rinse it, your mug.
Yeah.
You pay. They give you a ticket. You
Yeah.
then give your mug and the ticket, and they have like 50-liter, no, bigger, 200-liter casks. Mm-hmm. 2 of them. 1 beer, again. Like a Helles type thing.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like 2 guys, and they are just cranking beer. Boom, boom, boom. This place is big. Really big. Really, really big. So then there's like 4 rooms, or no, 5 different rooms, and they seem to be added on like as time went on, because the first one was older, and they were old rooms. Each room was at least as big as the entire footprint of the beer temple, probably maybe as big as like 50 to 100% bigger. And I'm not talking about the places that the people who are listening have like sat in. I'm talking about the entire
office.
footprint, the whole back area,
Bathrooms.
the bathrooms, the bottle shop, everything. Like every room was that big, twice as big now that I think about it.
And there were 5 of those?
5 of them.
Wow.
Big place, man. Big place. And then they had almost looked like, I don't know if it was vendors or what, but all sorts of different foods. They had like a baker. They had all sorts of foods that you could go to as well. And then you just find a seat, and the place was packed. You find a seat, and you sit down. We found a seat with some 19 and 20-year-old kids from California who were there for a semester abroad. Hilarious kids.
I think you at some point you sent me pictures of children, and I was like, "Why are you sending me these pictures?" And I assumed there would be a story at some point. But
Right. Yes.
that must be those kids.
Yeah, they were hysterical. Good kids, having a good time. Just so funny to be sitting with kids who are like almost 30 years younger than you.
Yeah.
And just like we were making fun of them for looking on their phones constantly, and we had a very good time with them. But when you're done, you take your mug, you bring it to the fountain, you rinse it, you get another ticket, and you give it to the guy again. I guess you can pick up a new mug every time, but like that's obviously not what you're supposed to do.
So that could be a long trek if there's like 5 of this place long. Yes, you could bring it back to the same fountain.
Well, they're kind of branched off of that.
Oh.
And there's a huge outdoor garden too.
This is like some very like old school like
yes,
font of like cleanliness kind of like this is very cool.
Yeah, so you rinse your mug. No, it did not take long at all to get beer. You hand it there, they fill it, they slide it back. It was the whole, and then like the bathrooms were all troughs, never a wait to get in. And that was a theme too. I was like, man, this place is geared towards getting you beer, putting beer in you, getting beer out of you, putting beer in, getting it in you, getting like efficient, like boom, 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 boom. There was never a wait for like anything. And there were at least 1,000 people there. Like there were a lot of people.
Yeah.
Then we went and got up and like had been with them for a while. I think we drank like 5 liters when we were sitting around there. Yeah, and then we went and got up. Yeah, each. And then we got up and sat down with some locals. They didn't speak English hardly at all, but didn't matter. They wanted to talk to us. We sat like, can we sit here? Yeah, sit down. And, eventually one of them is going to start talking to you, where are you from, and stuff like that. And it was just it was a theme of drinking there. It's like you sit at these communal tables, and it gets you talking. There were no TVs anywhere. There was no music unless there was live music. But there was conversation happening constantly. People went there in groups, and groups of people kind of got together, and that really was typified at Oktoberfest. Like that's what that was kind of, I think, exemplified it the most. So I'll try to hurry up because this is going to be a very long episode.
Do we want to do like Oktoberfest as a separate episode? Because we're already at like 2 hours and we haven't
We're at 2 hours already.
Yet.
Maybe.
And I got up at 5:30 this morning.
Okay, maybe we'll do a part 2.
Could we do it as a part 2?
We could do a part 2. Is there anything we want to say before? So I was at Salzburg. Beautiful place. The Augustiner Kloster is absolutely like a magical place that I have never been to anything like that before. It was amazing. And then the next day we went to Eyinger and Ondex Kloster.
Oh, wow.
Both of those were amazing as well.
I love
We can go
Ondex.
into that. And I guess that will be for the next episode.
Maybe we'll be back.
All right. Well, one way or the other, we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again, 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 again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again, 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 again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again, again,